Okay, dear Dhamma friends, so we are in the next item of this program. So that is discussing Sutta, basically to get some insight, get some direction, get some guidance from the Buddha's teaching. Now, it is quite important to have some understanding about the Buddha's teaching, because otherwise we are trying to reinvent the wheel. It is not necessary, since Buddha has already found the path and he has come up with various techniques and various methods to overcome various defilements, to understand ourselves, and what are the various techniques and what are the proper method, and everything is fairly described by the Buddha, and everything is available in the canon, especially in the Sutta Pitaka. So we are trying to get some insight, get some guidance from various suttas. Now, when it comes to our mind, so Buddha says that we are driven by various thoughts, we are driven by various, say, emotions, defilements, different names are given. So we become sometimes poor victims of these emotions or these various thoughts. And sometimes we become completely get on to kind of a transgression of various precepts. So we are getting into quarrels, we are getting into troubles, and we are hitting each other, getting into arguments. So many situations are going to happen. But as we develop mindfulness, so this tendency, this reaction becomes less in a way, and we are in a better position to understand what is really going on, rather than being driven by various thoughts. Rather than being in a dream, we are now trying to be in the reality as much as possible. So even though we call it as reality, still we haven't understood the real essence of the Dhamma, or real proper terms, proper perspective, but comparatively we can say we are in a better position rather than being in a dream, rather than being in an illusion. Now, when it comes to this present moment awareness, so now we are trying to focus our attention on the present moment phenomena, and we are trying to understand how they behave, how they are nature, what are the sort of causing conditions, reasons. So likewise, this is a kind of a wise investigation that we are continuing, and there are various insights are possible. Now, that is where we especially continuing our vipassana meditation, but Buddha does not stop only at the vipassana meditation, but he asks us to support ourselves in many different ways, because there are many possibilities that we can utilize to cut down various defilements, to restrain various defilements, to minimize various habits, harmful habits. So in that respect, this Sabbasava Sutta gives us a lot of insights, gives a lot of opening, a lot of guidance, how to guard ourselves, how to protect ourselves, especially our minds, so that we are not giving opportunity to various defiled thought patterns to arise. Now, in this sutta, Buddha comes up with 7 methods, and all are really valid, and we can use them based on the situation. Say, for example, when we are meditating, suppose it is raining and we can't stop the rain. It may be lightning, thundering, heavy rain going on, but we can't stop it. So we simply have to be patient. Suppose it is really hot and you are sweating, but we can't stop it. Probably you can open a door, you can open a window, probably you can switch on a fan. So different techniques are there, but still there may be a little portion that you need to be patient. So if we are not being patient at that time, so if we become really agitated, sort of blaming another person, so then unnecessarily we are getting into trouble. Unnecessarily, we are polluting our mind. But on the other hand, if we are patient enough, then we can calm down, can cope up with the situation. So that is actually one method Buddha describes, what we call as adivasana pahatabba. So therefore, as all human beings, especially as practitioners, so these kinds of various techniques are very helpful to know, because depending on the situation, we can apply any of these techniques and calm down ourselves and avoid the arising of unarisen defilements. So that is one of the effort that Buddha asks us to maintain, asks us to develop. There are 4 types of effort Buddha is talking. If there are already arisen defilements, so he is asking us to remove them and not to associate them, not to support them. Rather try to be free from those defilements. And again, if our mind is already free from defilements, try to protect it, not allowing new defilements to arise. So that is another side. And on the other hand, if there are unarisen wholesome states, qualities, skills, very useful skills, then Buddha asks us to develop them, to be energetic to develop them, to have sort of relentless effort to develop those necessary qualities in the mind. On the other hand, if there are to some extent already developed qualities, and then we need to retain them, we need to further grow them, we need to complete them, fulfill them. So that is the other side. So likewise, Buddha come up with a very beautiful methodology to sort of uplift our mind. Now, Sabbasava Sutta in that respect very useful, very practical, and he is talking about how by looking at one's own mind, by looking at one's thinking patterns, and to understand what is the useful way of thinking and what is the harmful way of thinking, one can avoid harmful thinking and one can employ useful thinking, beneficial thinking, and that way we can fairly cut down certain amount of defilements. And on the other hand, when we are using our, say, vehicles, our clothing, maybe our occupation, our house, food, etc. So even that time, Buddha asks us to guard our mind, because we may be comparing with another person, we may be conceited because of what we have. So there are still possibilities in day-to-day activities as we are associating with all these various commodities. There may be a possibility that we are arousing defilements. So that if we are mindful and if we know the exact reason why we are using them, then fairly we can still guard our mind without allowing defilement to arise. And then, as I mentioned, patient endurance. That is the other aspect. So without immediately getting into arguments or get into conclusions and get into trouble, get into fight, rather we sort of have a step back and look attitude. We have a little patience. We can have some sort of a time to look at the situation rather than immediately react. So that kind of an endurance is the other aspect that Buddha is talking here. And now we are coming to the 5th one, that is abandoning by avoiding. So by avoiding certain things, then we are not allowing various defilements to arouse, because avoidance is the other method that Buddha is talking. So what are there to avoid? So basically here, say, there may be some difficult places. Say if you are in a forest, then there may be certain certain pitfalls, certain cliffs, and maybe dangerous animals, harmful places, dangerous places. So all these things may be better avoid, because if we are getting into trouble, then we have to suffer. We have to spend a lot of time at the hospital, we have to trouble the others. So likewise, we may be losing a lot of time. So it is not necessary to take a risk in a way. If we know it is a risky assignment, if we know it's a kind of a risky place, then better avoid it. If we know exactly it's a dangerous place, better avoid it. Simple as that. And on the other hand, if we know that certain areas may be harmful or may be dangerous, then we better avoid it. So likewise, and we know that there may be certain bad places, we better avoid them. There may be various dangerous places, we better avoid them. So likewise, we are basically using common sense here. So we know very well that certain places are bit sort of dangerous, so we are not going to go there. So that we are protecting ourselves and we are not taking a risk. So we are using common sense and protecting ourselves, because still there are a lot to do in a way. So we don't need to take a risk, rather we continue our path as good as possible and trying to develop ourselves. So this first avoidance is something like that. And then Buddha talks that there may be some dangerous places, as I said, kind of a cliff, kind of a hazard areas, so those have to be avoided. And maybe certain unsuitable, say, food, that also have to be avoided. Now say for example today, now we all are facing a pandemic. On such situation, we know that if we mingle with others too much, if we do go for close association with others, get into more crowded places, there's a higher possibility that we may get into the virus. We may be exposed to the virus. So therefore we know the risk, we know the situation, so we are as much as possible maintaining social distancing, maintaining ourselves, protecting ourselves. So simply as that. So this is also coming under here, because otherwise we have to suffer. Then we have to go for remedy, we have to go to the hospital, we have to take medicine, we have to spend a lot of time. So we are losing our necessary time for meditation. Likewise, our loved one has to suffer. So likewise, many problems are there if we are not sort of avoiding that wrong place, avoiding such close association. But if we know and if we are using common sense, then we can protect ourselves and use the, say, face mask or whatever it is. Then we are in a better position to maintain ourselves, protect ourselves. So simple as that. And then Buddha talks about avoids associating with bad people. So that is another point here Buddha is talking, where because we can't constantly be alone, but we have to move with others. But when we are moving with others, when we are associating others, we need to know exactly with this association what is really happening to my mind. Is it getting further polluted? Is it getting deluded? Or am I being carried away by various defilements? Or am I getting a good companionship, encouragement to my practice? Or already available doubts are being cleared because of this association? So likewise, we have to decide whom we are going to associate. So that is where Buddha says, if we know this person is not a good person to associate, better avoid him. Simple as that. So Kalyana Mittata, on the other hand, is something that Buddha encouraged. If you know this person is a good person to associate, I can learn something from him, I can get some encouragement from him, or I can get some guidance from him, then I can associate. So likewise, we have to decide whom we are going to associate. Now here, Buddha actually does not completely asking us to avoid everything. Rather, it depends on what would be the contribution. Now, if we are associating someone, if that association contributes towards the development of the wholesomeness in our mind, we are now become more faithful. We are now become more encouraged. And our mind become pleasant. We are now trying to be mindful. We are now trying to say, listen to Dhamma. So like investigate Dhamma. So likewise some sort of an encouragement has happened because of this association. Then better understand that now there's an improvement, encouragement towards the wholesome side. So that association is therefore good. On the other hand, if because of another association, so we being sort of lethargic to the practice, we are now doubtful about the practice, and we lost the faith on the practice, we lost the faith on the teacher, we lost the faith on the Buddha because of another person's association. So that means we better avoid that association. So likewise the deciding factor is either the improvement of the wholesomeness or the decrease of the wholesomeness. So therefore Buddha recommends, there are many associations are possible, and that association we have to continue depending on this factor. Say for example, if I am going through some sort of a bodily activity, say you are doing some exercises, it may be useful. So if you understand, okay, I am doing some exercises, and while doing exercises maybe I am trying to be mindful as well, so it is useful. In one sense it's a kind of physical exercise. Now I am using mindfulness also with that. Now there's a kind of benefit in the mindfulness side as well. Then that kind of an exercise, bodily conduct, may be useful. Better associate. Now on the other hand, suppose you are using the body to do something bad, kind of a bodily activity. Now you say, you understand, okay, if I am continuing like this, I am harming myself, I am harming another person. So then I better avoid that type of a bodily conduct. Similarly, the verbal conduct. Say you are talking with someone, you are constantly, say, chatting with someone, emailing with someone, writing to someone. So if this kind of association going to sort of an understanding, going to some encouragement towards the spiritual growth, then it is better to continue, no harm. But on the other hand, if this kind of a conversation is sort of losing the faith in yourself, and you become more discouraged in the practice, you become doubtful about the practice, then we need to understand, so this sort of a conversation with this particular person is not that useful. I better avoid it. And similarly, Buddha talks about how we are thinking. And if we know that if I am thinking in this manner, helpful to come out of my problems. So I am thinking properly, I am thinking in terms of the Dhamma, in line with the Dhamma, then I can continue even that thinking, no harm, because the outcome is wholesome. But on the other hand, if I am thinking in a wrong manner, I get into more confusion, and mind become more cluttered, mind become more congested, more depressed, then that kind of thinking is wrong. Better stop it as quickly as possible. So likewise, so Buddha, actually this is from the Sevitabba Sutta. So there Buddha, depending on whether the outcome is wholesome or the outcome is unwholesome, we need to decide either to continue our association or to stop the association. It may be a bodily activity, it may be a verbal activity, it may be a mental activity. And it may be a kind of a form that we are seeing, it may be a sound that we are listening, it may be an odor that we are going through, it may be a taste that we are going through, it may be a touching sensation that we are going through. So likewise, we can apply it to many situations. So day-to-day activities that we are doing, so we need to check. So by doing this particular activity, is it harmful? Is it useful? Is it useful to myself, or is it useful to another person? So likewise, we need to do a very honest comparison, kind of a weighing, so that we can understand, okay, to continue this activity or to stop that activity. Actually, Buddha advising to his son, Venerable Rahula, Buddha say, before you conduct any bodily activity, you do a little reflection. You will do a little reflection. Is this activity, if I am going to start, will it be useful to myself, or will it be useful to another person, or will it be harmful to myself, or will it be harmful to another person? If you understand that it is useful to myself, it is useful to another person, then you can continue. You can start that activity. On the other hand, if you understood that it is harmful to myself, harmful to another person, then better avoid it. Similarly, Buddha says, now I am continuing certain activity. While doing it, also Buddha asks us to reflect. Buddha asks Venerable Rahula to reflect. So I am now started this activity. Is it really useful to me? Or is it harmful to me? Is it useful to another person? Or is it harmful to another person? So even while doing the activity, if you understood, because of this reflection, that something is useful and beneficial, it is developing the wholesomeness, then can continue. Better continue. On the other hand, the answer is negative, telling that it is harmful and it is harmful to another person as well, then better stop it. And again Buddha says, even after the completion of an activity, Buddha asks us to do a second thought, give a second thought, considering the benefit of what we gained. So if we really gain something in a way, kind of a wholesome side, it was really beneficial. Suppose you got a book and you read it, and after reading it you are able to remove many doubts. You had so many doubts, but this book has answered most of those questions. So that means that what you did is a good thing. So you can be happy. And on the other hand, the answer is negative. If the answer comes that this activity really has damaged my faith, really has discouraged me, or really sort of harm another person, so then at least in the future, don't try to do it. Don't do it, basically. So likewise, Buddha asks us to use that same analogy, what he has preached to Venerable Rahula, in our bodily activities, our verbal activities, as well as our mental activities. So we have to reflect ourselves, we have to reflect back onto our bodily activities, we have to reflect back on our speech, we have to reflect back on our mind, mental activity. So this is in a way mindfulness, where we are using our common sense and we are trying to be mindful rather than simply being a victim of what we do, simply being a victim of what we speak or what we think. So we should be able to step back, come out of the situation, come out of this incident and watch it, reflect it. So am I doing it correctly? Is it really necessary? Is someone going to harm? Or am I going to be really benefited? So likewise, we are now not in the situation, not driven by the situation. We are able to come out of the situation and sort of analyze the situation or evaluate the situation. So such kind of an evaluation is useful to either to continue the activity because it is interesting, because it is useful, it is developing the wholesomeness, and to avoid any activity since we found it is not useful and it is harmful. So likewise, Buddha encourages us to do good things. Those are useful to ourselves and to the others. And to avoid harmful things, those are harmful to ourselves and to the others. And therefore this abandoning by avoiding is fairly connected with our common sense, fairly connected with our evaluation and reflection, and based on that we can decide what to avoid or what to continue. So with that note, I like to conclude today's short Dhamma sermon, and now we are getting to the questions.
Sorry, Bante, there are currently 3 questions. Question number 1 is a general question. Dear Bante, last week you mentioned about a scientific meter that can measure mindfulness quality and depth by recording the changes in the brain structure and brain waves. With all respect, is this something meaningful and accurate considering the depth of the subject of the mind and how the mind works? If these measurements and indications in the brain can scientifically model mindfulness, we are agreeing that the mind is a function inside our brain and something completely biological. On the other hand, we hear that the brain and body are also something the mind has perceived based on the six senses. Therefore, we come back again and again to the chicken and egg type of problem. I heard Ajahn Sumedho's example of the senses or the body as radios tuned and pure awareness as radio waves. Without the waves, the radio cannot produce anything meaningful, and without the radio, the waves are not meaningful. Appreciate Bande's explanation of this from the Dhamma. With metta, that's the end.
Yeah, it is very interesting question. Nowadays, actually, these instruments are coming up and they are available in the market. And in Nissarana also, we have a couple of instruments. Recently, a few doctors from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, they conducted a fairly comprehensive test using some monks from Nissarana. So actually, they actually used what you call the ECG or not ECG, EEG, I think. They had a portable EEG machine and they took it, brought it, and so they asked us to meditate while those probes are being connected to the head, and they tried to measure various waveforms, alpha, beta, gamma. So likewise, there are many waveforms being recognized. They are corresponding to various brain activities, and with that they are trying to come up with kind of a assumption, kind of a conclusion that what is really has happened due to the mindfulness practice. Now these are in a way scientific findings that we have today, and there may be, as you said, certain hidden part as well. So as you correctly mentioned, so this kind of a scientific experiment might not provide us the complete picture, not the total picture, but it may provide at least some partial picture of the situation. So as you said, so if we simply restrict ourselves thinking that the mind activity is only limited to the brain, so if one is able to measure all the brain activity, so that correctly defines or that correctly measure the whole mental activity, so that is not 100% correct. So because according to the Buddha's teaching, so this awareness is available, as you said, onto all six senses. So through eyes we are seeing, through ears we are listening, through nose we are smelling, through the tongue we taste, through the body we are aware, and through the mind we are thinking. So this function is available throughout the body, to the whole body. So therefore, simply measuring brain activity, we can't say is the complete measurement. But anyway, they have found some interesting results even using this kind of a brain scanning or brain wave measurement. So those are also significant because they done it scientifically, and there are certain pioneers who have taken part in this structure, like Richard Davidson. He is the one who pioneered in these experiments. Actually, he has taken many Tibetan monks, meditating monks, and he has actually used functional MRI machines, and he tried to measure the brain activity of those meditating monks, and the findings are very interesting. And you may already have known these facts, so I am just repeating just for your information. So he found that if one is continuing one's practice for a considerable period of time, then the prefrontal cortex has fairly developed. So that is one thing that he found. And again, there's another part in the brain called amygdala, which is sort of deciding certain bad activities. So we become so reactive because of that, but that has somewhat contracted. It has reduced. And again, the left lobe and the right lobe is connected by something called corpus callosum. So that has further improved, so that the left brain and the right brain is fairly active. So new connections are being introduced because of the mindfulness practice. So that you become kind of a full brain person, not a half brain person, but a full brain person because of the mindfulness practice. Now say for example, today's education, if we take, constantly focus on the left brain activities. Now we are going for mathematics, we are going for analytics, we are going for critical thinking, we are going for labeling, and so likewise, so it is mostly promoting the left brain, and we hardly continue our aesthetic aspects. Therefore the right brain is completely sort of forgotten, but the mindfulness practice helps us to again sort of activate the right brain as well. And it doesn't stop there. When once one is moving towards the vipassana, so the fairly kind of blend of both sides are there. So ultimately, if one is able to use whole brain, left brain as well as the right brain, then the skill that one has is very high when compared to another person. So these are certain scientific findings that they were able to reveal, and they fairly reasonable in a way. They are fairly, because it is not a single person found it, but many scientists were involved in it, and again they did these experiments using many different groups, control groups as well, and therefore the findings are very encouraging. So that's why now they sort of recommend without any reservation that mindfulness practice is very useful, and you can have a sort of a measured results by continuing mindfulness practice for a long period. And the minimum they do with John Kabat-Zinn is that the 8 weeks of mindfulness practice, and so he has come up with a kind of a what you call a schedule, a program. So if one is continuing such practice, so he can, or the scientists can show that certain significant changes have happened to the brain. So therefore likewise these instruments are useful in a way to convince ourselves, or to convince others who don't have belief in the, say, spiritual practice, but now that is being proven by these various scientific equipments. With that, sometimes people are convinced because they only knew that, and they only believe these physical instruments, and for that these instruments, these findings are giving a strong results, lot of evidence, so that they are now coming to the meditation, to the mindfulness practice with some sort of solid examples, with some proven facts, and not just faith, but they are now proven. So therefore it has some benefit as well, but as you said, it may not provide the complete picture. Yeah.
Question number 206. This one is a theory question. Dear Most Venerable Bhante, there's a Dhamma question. I have heard this gatha before, and recently it's been coming to my mind often. But I don't know the full one. It starts as, do my best, Pina Pindumamam Rupam. Does that make sense, Bhante?
Right, I got it. Yes.
Okay. The phenomena comes in contact with our senses are like a bubble. Can you please kindly be able to explain this full gatha? Thank you so much for your advice and guidance.
Yeah.
After I started attending these sessions on Sundays, I feel I am getting refreshed every time. It's like a great inner content in life, and I feel Dhamma has all the answers to all the questions in the entire world. Thank you very much, merits. May the strength be with you for enlightenment. That's the end.
Yeah, it is called Pena Pindupama Sutta. So I am trying to find it as well. So there Buddha is giving a very beautiful, very practical similes to various aggregates. You know, Buddha's teaching is coming up, and Buddha basically comes up with 5 aggregates. The material aggregate, that is the body and the materiality, that is the rupa, form aggregate. And then the Vedana, feeling aggregate, and then various signs, perceptions, sanya aggregate, and then Sankhara, that is the formations aggregate, and then ultimately the fifth, that is the consciousness aggregate, Vijnana Kanda. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Now Buddha says Rupa, this form, is similar to a form. Form here, spelling is F-O-A-M. You know, in a river bank, because of the gushing of the wave, again and again, there's a kind of a form being generated. And if you look at it from outside, from distant, it appears like kind of a white color stone. But once you come closer and see it, if you investigate it and you found it is simply bubbles. It's empty. There is no real essence there. It's only kind of empty form. So therefore Buddha says this Rupa, materiality, is like that. Even though it appears like compact, even though it appears like solid, internally there is nothing. There is basically nothing substantial. So it's basically empty. Pena pindupamang rupang. So Rupa, this materiality, is very much like a form, fathom form. Pena pindupamang rupamang vedana bubbulupamang. So there the feelings are like bubbles, water bubbles. So there he give a simile example. Suppose that and when you see that during the raindrop drops onto a water surface, then a water bubble comes up, but at the moment it bursts. Assume there's another raindrop contact with the surface, water surface. As a result, another water bubble arises and immediately it bursts. Suppose now heavy rain. Now there's a heavy rain continuing, and again raindrops are touching the water surface. As a result, water bubbles are being generated. Immediately each one of them burst. So Buddha says Vedana, feelings, are like that. Irrespective of whether it is pleasurable, painful or neutral, all the feelings are like this. All the feelings have this kind of a situation where each minute feeling has the nature to arise and pass away. They are very unstable, transient, and like water bubbles, we never know when immediately it's going to burst. So likewise Buddha say Vedana bubbulupama. Then Buddha says Marichi kupama sanya. This sanya, perception, is like a mirage, where we think mirage is water. We might misunderstand mirage as water. So say for example, while you are in a desert, while you are in a very hot area, so there may be from far kind of a wavy effect might be available, might be visible. And if you don't know about the phenomena of a mirage, probably you might misunderstand it as to be water and assume that you are also very thirsty, you are in search of water and you are going after it, thinking it as water. But unfortunately it is not really water. It is because of the dry air, there's a kind of an illusion, appear like water. It is not really water. So therefore Buddha says all perceptions are like that. So the perceptions, though it appear like real, they are not really real in a way. Now say for example, when we see someone, it appears like he or she is existing. He or she is someone, and he or she is living for a long time and kind of a solid person, kind of a real entity. There is someone. So likewise we gave a lot of names, signs, values, and we recognize so as so and so. So likewise there are many perceptions generated, but Buddha says they are like mirage. So these are actually very interesting phenomena, very interesting similes that Buddha is talking here. So in a way asking us to reflect, asking us to sort of even think even reflect on why Buddha has given this sort of similes. And another interesting one is about the sankhara. Sankhara kadalupama, where sankharas, formations are like a banana trump. You know, in the banana trump, there is no core, there is no hardwood. And what is, when you are removing each layer, each sheath, again another new layer is coming. So you assume that you are removing that layer as well, another new layer coming. You are removing that layer, another new layer coming. Ultimately, nothing is there. So it appears like very solid from appearance, from outside, but once you cut it or once you remove each layer, there is nothing, there is no hardwood. Similarly, Buddha says all the sankharas, formations, though appear as very important, very valuable, as very highly concentrated, and appear like mind, interesting, but ultimately once you are able to look at it closely, there is nothing there. Just to give you an example, suppose one is extremely angry. So at that time, say you are burning with anger, you want to take the revenge, you consider that you are correct, the other person is extremely wrong, he is bad. So likewise you become extremely angry. But on the other hand, if you are able to step back from the anger without being driven by anger, if you are able to step back from anger and look at anger objectively, so then slowly, if you are able to go back, if you are able to look back, if you are able to sort of step back and see how this anger generated. So assume that there is a kind of an anger available right now, there are a lot of thinking going on, and if you are able to slowly look back, step back and analyze this thought pattern, how it has come to this level, what was the original cause of this anger. So there could be kind of a thought, there could be a kind of a sign. So that sign has misunderstood and we have interpreted it, we have attributed it to a person as so and so, and then we included a lot of memories, what he did in the past and what are your own preconceived ideas that is also being added to this. So likewise we are making it, we are constructing it, we are fabricating it. So once fabricated, it appears like a big thing, it appears like an important thing, it appears like a really huge solid thing. But as Buddha mentioned, as we are sort of analyzing a banana trunk, by removing each layer, by removing each sheath, then ultimately you found nothing is there. It's empty. It's hollow. So similarly, if we understand into our own mind, even we call it as anger, even we call it as, say, lust, even we call it as jealousy. All these many different types of mental qualities, mental constructions, fabrications, proliferations, are, once we are properly analyzing, they are not a solid thing. They are chains of thoughts, one coming after the other, promoting each other, hiding each other even, and sort of exaggerating each other, and we are adding to each other, multiplying to each other. So likewise we are weaving a net of thoughts. So if once we are properly see this picture, Buddha says it is empty, it is hollow, like a banana trunk. And another interesting one is the vijnana, the consciousness, mayupamancha vijnana. Buddha says vijnana is like a maya, like an illusion, like a magic. You know that magic is not a real thing. So it's a magician's trick. So he has fooled ourselves. So he has made a trick and we are simply looking at it. Somehow he is making a trick and sort of cheat us. So similarly Buddha says the vijnana, the consciousness, also cheat us. So something not available appear as available. Because of this cheating nature, fabricating nature, illusionary nature of the vijnana, the consciousness. So therefore Buddha says vijnana is like a magician. So he do various magic tricks. He do all these illusions. And we ultimately become a victim of it. We believe it. So therefore Buddha very beautifully gives these similes, and in this Pena Pindupama Sutta, it is in the Kanda Samyutta, very interesting and really eye-opening kind of similes, and they are fairly understandable by a Vipassana yogi. Yeah.
Question number 3 of 7. This one is walking mindfulness. Dear Bhante, over the last 5 to 6 months, I have been observing the nature of how the mind gets distracted during the walking practice and coming back again to the walking process. In general, my walking sessions have no major issues due to Bhante's guidance, and I feel relaxed and calm after 1 hour practice most of the time. During an overall walking session, there are a few occasions where my mind gets distracted, and I become aware of it after some time. During the initial period of 10 to 15 minutes, when I am observing the various sensations on the soles of the foot, sometimes at the end of the path, I lose the focus slightly due to thoughts. However, this distraction appears dramatic since I am absorbing quite a lot of information during this time. Immediately the mind comes back to the walking process. After 15 to 20 minutes, the sensations fade away and the walking process becomes monotonous and automatic. I observe that the mind tends to distract while at the middle of the walking path and not at the end. This distraction is not dramatic as earlier, but very subtle. I do not realize it immediately. It takes a while for me to be aware that I got swept away by some thoughts. By that time, there is no clear-cut observations on the soles or the walking process to come back. However, if I get aware of the situation and do not panic, the mind slowly comes back to whatever the sensation I had during the walking in a very gentle manner. These are the 2 reflections I have on how, when, where the mind gets distracted and comes back to the walking process. But these comments and guidance are appreciated with all respect. With metta, that's the end.
Yeah, I think this is no problem at all. Basically, this is how your mindfulness practice, meditation practice evolves. So at the beginning, you are able to establish mindfulness, and then you are experiencing more and more information. You are able to clearly comprehend a lot of things, clearly understand, clearly see many things. But later, it starts to fade away. Later, it appears like kind of a monotony, boring, everything like faded away, and mind appear like not interested about it. This is how it evolves. So the important thing is to continue the practice. Now at this time, if we don't know what is really going on, then probably we misunderstand, thinking our mindfulness has lost, it has deteriorated, it has declined, and I am doing something wrong, my sila is not good. So likewise we may get into wrong conclusions. But if we know that this is a kind of an evolvement happening to the arambana, to the object, then that means that we have the correct understanding. So therefore what has happened is pretty good, and this is how it is evolving, practice is evolving. So your duty is to continue the practice. Don't stop thinking that now I feel bored, I better stop, or I better say go out to the to the walking path if you feel bored while sitting. So without doing that, just continue. Assume that you are used to practice say 1 hour. So try to maintain that 1 hour. Assume that you feel started to feel this boredom after 30 minutes. Now it's very boring, not that interesting. Everything appears like blurred, and you can't find real distinct information, demarcations. But you need to continue. So that's the duty from your side. Yeah.
Question number 4 of 7. This is mindful sitting. Dear Bhante, regarding the guided session today and the technique of being aware of just being, seems to be very simple and powerful practice. I was really surprised by this technique, as I could immediately plunge into knowing various elemental characteristics of the observations while sitting on a chair. Usually this happens after 30 minutes of breathing mindfulness. Hope it will be beneficial to all if Bhante can explain a bit about just be. Much merits for your valuable service. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, it is actually very interesting that the beauty of the Buddha's teaching is as we continue, so the practice or the technique become more and more simple. So actually even at the beginning it is quite simple, but since we cannot comprehend this simplicity at the beginning, so we make it little complicated. Say for example, if you are in the breathing practice, so we even note it, label it as this is in breath, this is out breath, so we do sort of even labeling. Later we can discard labeling and simply be with the breath. And now you have something to do. There is a task to do, that is to recognize whether this is the in breath or whether this is the out breath, whether it is warm, whether it is cold, whether it is long, whether it is short. So there's a kind of a investigation is there. So you have a task to do and you are doing it. But later, slowly, as you are continuing, so you are coming to a region, now things are really happening and they are extremely vulnerable, things are very transient, and you simply have to observe. You can't do anything else. Simply you observe. You become a mere observer, and the inside in front of you there is a process continuously happening, and it is showing you the real nature of the situation, real nature of the phenomena, and you still have to watch it. Still there's a task, but comparatively this task is easy to do and less work to do. Simple observation is only needed. And here still some fair amount of mindfulness is there. Fairly you need to focus onto the phenomena. So there are still some amount of work is included, work is involved. Assume now, because of the practice, now everything gone away, everything disappeared, everything calmed down, and mind has let go of everything, and now mind doesn't associate anything. Now you need just be. You can't do anything. You shouldn't breathe forcefully. You shouldn't change your posture. You shouldn't get up. You shouldn't start to think. You shouldn't doubt. Or you shouldn't change the object. Rather, you simply just be. So therefore, just be is something we need to learn. So basically we can't just be. We always want to do something. So either I want to do some politics, either I want to fight for something, I want to fight for human rights, I want to fight for women's rights, I want to fight against for poverty, I want to fight against for corona, I want to fight against for cruelty towards the animals. So many fights, many emotions, many actions, many ambitions are always taking us for a ride, always driving us. But how are we going to just be? So it's very interesting how we can just be. So therefore it is not that we are trying to impose something, but rather we are coming back to ourselves. So we have the nature to just be. We have the capacity to just be. Actually, it does not mean that we become callous, we become indifferent. Rather, at this situation, there is nothing to do. Everything has gone away. Everything has disappeared. Mind started to associate nothing, basically. Grasp nothing. So just be. That is what we expected. Freedom of the mind. Complete non-grasping nature of the mind, unconditioned nature of the mind, unassociated nature of the mind. So now you, at least for a short period of time, you are experiencing it. So just enjoy it. If you can't call it as just be, just enjoy it. Just be with it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to think about it. Don't doubt about it. Just be. So very interesting. Yeah.
Question of 7. General question. Dear Bhante, if someone has any doubts about maybe Bhavana, and they will just live in this current without thinking of the past or future, isn't this Vichikicha, doubting the Buddha's word? Should we not have confidence in the concept of rebirth or when we start to study and practice the Buddha's teaching? That's the end. Does that make sense, Bhante?
Actually, Chatu, there were communication gaps. While you were talking, while you were presenting, could you explain it again?
Yeah, I'll read it out again. General question. Dear Bhante, if someone has any doubts about rebirth or bhava, they think they will just live in this current moment without thinking of the past or future. Isn't this Vichikicha, doubting the Buddha's word? Should we not have confidence in the concept of rebirth or bhava, and we start to study and practice the Buddha's teachings?
Yeah.
That's the end. Did that make sense?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, that is where Buddha talks about mundane type of sammaditthi and the supramundane type of sammaditthi. Lokiya sammaditthi and the lokuttara sammaditthi. So if you refer wherever Buddha talking about the sammaditthi, say with especially it's in the very detailed explanation is there in the Maha Chattalisika Sutta, where Buddha talks about sammaditthi, right view. So the first type of sammaditthi is about the laukiya sammaditthi, the mundane type of sammaditthi. So that is necessary. That is where we consider there is a person, or in a way there is a good person, or there is wholesomeness, there is unwholesomeness, there is good, there is bad. So if you do a good thing, there are good results. If you do bad things, there are bad results. So basically you believe in karma. So therefore it is called as kammasakata sammaditthi. So you being responsible, you become responsible because you are considering as an individual, and you have to be responsible on what you do, what you tell, what you think. And if you do good things, then results are good results. If you do bad things, the results are bad results. And there is the previous birth, and there is your mother, there is your father, and there are people who understand something deep, and there are sort of results of good deeds. And if you assume that you are very generous, you are giving a lot of things to another person, say to a beggar, and there are good results. So likewise, good establishment of karma, believing of karma is there. So that is really necessary. So you can't immediately jump to very high level theory neglecting these basics. Then we are actually sort of confusing the teaching. That is where Buddha starts with this mundane type of sammaditthi. So therefore we first of all establish ourselves in this mundane type of sammaditthi, then we become responsible of what we do. Then we are trying to do a good thing. We are trying to do wholesome things without doing wrong things. And we believe in karma. And we believe that if we do good things, there are good results. If we do bad things, there are bad results. So as a result, we become good person, a sappurisa. Now for that good person, Buddha does not stop him there. So he is now teaching more advanced. So that is where we are coming up with supramundane sammaditthi. And that is, we can say, okay, there is the non-self teaching, there is impermanence, then there is unsatisfactoriness, there are Four Noble Truths. So likewise, those are in a way some advanced teachings. So you can't mix these two in a way. So we have to be in the conventional world, we have to be in this sort of lokiya sammaditthi, and while being there, basically we can further develop ourselves to go to a more higher refined understanding, and that is also needed, that is also necessary. So this is the answer that we can say, rather than sort of denying rebirth, or rather than simply being doubtful about it, simply take it basically There are enough evidence are there available today. And if we do a good thing, then there are good results. If we do a bad thing, there are bad results. So accordingly, that we have sort of previous accumulated karma, and if we accumulate karma within this life, there are results that may bear fruit in the future as well.
Question number 6 of 7. Bhante, we're actually out of time. Is it okay if we go over time today?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a general question. Dear Venerable Bhante, just a while ago when you were explaining Hina Pindupama Gata, I felt a vibration start at the bottom of my spine and it propagated upwards like a snake. It's cold and soothing. It's still stuck in the lower spine. What must I do? Much merits.
So basically, while listening to Dhamma, probably these kind of, say, pleasurable feelings or maybe even painful feelings can arise. There is no any specific, say, time or reason. There may be, of course, reasons. But all the time these sensations are available. But since your mind is well focused and you are able to remove, at least subside defilements, nivaranas, hindrances, now you are able to focus on these subtle sensations. So therefore it's a good thing. So listening to Dhamma is called another vimuttayatana, kind of an opening in your mind. So mind become free because you are connecting to the Dhamma. You are appreciating Buddha's teaching. You getting encouraged because of the Buddha's teaching. You become uplifted because of the Buddha's teaching. So therefore, again, kind of an opening happens in your mind. So mind is so receptive, so energetic. So now the practice is developing. So it is a very good thing.
Question number 7 of 8. This one is a general question. Dear Bhante, please give some guidance on developing endurance, especially when facing difficult or unexpected events. I find I can slip into old habits without initially even realizing. Much merits for your guidance. Thank you.
Can you repeat the first statement, Chatu?
Yeah. Can you please give some guidance on developing endurance?
Endurance, okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So this is something actually we need throughout our life. Because if we become impatient, we immediately get into troubles. Suppose we get into arguments, we are getting into, say, quarrels, we start to write nasty letters, we're going to take revenge, because we don't have endurance. So that's why in the endurance section, it is not only that we are enduring the others' bad hints or bad comments, they are condemns, but even the difficult situations are there. Now we all are going through such difficult situation. Now everyone is affected by this COVID pandemic. This is a difficult situation. But from our side, there is nothing much to do rather than protecting ourselves and abide by the, say, social, say, distancing rules and etc. But everyone basically has to fairly cope up with the situation, endure the situation, so can't help. So likewise in our lives, there are many situations that we can't do much other than being sort of patient. Suppose you are in a traffic jam and you are so impatient about going there. You are already late to the office. You are already late to take your child from the kindergarten. So you have many options now. But unfortunately, you are on a pretty traffic jam. Now if you start to curse the other people, curse the government, blame the police officers, will it helpful for you to go to the kindergarten or to pick your, say, loved one, your child quickly? Or will it helpful to go to the office quickly? Basically not. You become further panic, you become further agitated, you become further sort of defiled, tensed, and we are sort of unnecessarily we are improving defilements. Unnecessarily we are increasing defilements, increasing asavas, taints. So that is where Buddha asks us to be patient. Because the situation is out of my hand, out of my control. Only thing I can do is just be patient. So these are very practical, methods that Buddha has come up with. So that's why I mentioned all these 7 methods are applicable. All these 7 methods we should apply when it is useful, when it is convenient, or when it is applicable. Yeah.
Question number 8. This is the last one. Daily question. Bhante, related to Dhamma sermon today, endurance by avoiding, for example, not going to hostile places, does that give a much wider perspective to karma and impact to karma, where everything is not karma but only part of the causes? That's the end of the question.
Yeah, definitely. If we say that everything happens because of karma, it is a wrong view. Buddha denies it. But there are many causes. It is not a single cause theory that Buddha is coming up with. It's a multi-cause result that we are experiencing. It is what we are going through, what we are experiencing is not a single cause outcome. There are many causes for what we are experiencing right now. So karma is a single cause. There are many other causes as well. So therefore we actually can't really decide what we experience right now. So assume that you get sick. So it may be because of kind of a bad habit. It may be because that you ate something difficult to digest, or there was some food poisoning, or kind of allergy situations, or maybe even karma. So that's why it's quite difficult to decide for us exact reasons. It is the domain of the Buddha, that it is not within our reach. We can do a sort of a guess and see whether it is because of the food, or because of bad habit, or because of karma. We can do a good guess, but we can't be very definite about that. So karma is, of course, is a single, only one reason. There are many other reasons causing a result. Yeah.
That's the end of the questions for today, Bhante. I'd just like to, just before we finish, I'd like to thank Bhante and also past merits for continuing with this program, along with all the people behind the scenes, organizers, seen and unseen people who've helped with the program, and also to the participants, because without you this program would not happen. So with that, I'd like to conclude the session.
Yeah, Thero Saranai.